mean, to be honest, as much as, I would have thought New York was going to be, New York to have a really odd mix of electricity. 46% natural gas, 22 hydro, 22 nuclear. That's not terrible. That's a really good diversified mix. I don't know how much New York does right, but they're at least doing this right.
They shut down their nuclear and then they just barely reopened it, Michael.
Yeah.
They were shutting down 22% of their power. Their path to stupidity is in that governor's office.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 edition of the Daily Energy News Beat. Stand up. Here are today's top headlines. First up, Saudi Arabia poised to increase summer crude burn for power. Sticking with the Middle East theme, QatarEnergy eyes major LNG trading expansion, will fly down to Brazil. Petrobras pens EPCI deal with Subsea 7 worth nearly $1.5 billion. And finally, we come back abroad. Trump allows Equinor to resume work on the wind project off New York. A lot of different angles to this. Stu will then toss over to me. I will quickly cover what happened in the oil and gas markets and lightly touch on some of the stuff we will be talking about in our State of the Market coming up on Thursday. So we will cover all that and a bag of chips, folks. As always, I am Michael Tanner, joined by Stuart Turley. Where do you want to begin?
Let's start with our buddies over there with Saudi Arabia, Michael. I did not know this, but Ananias on X put out a post, and I had to do a little research on this one. Saudi Arabia's electricity mix in 2023 was 52% natural gas, 40% oil, 8% steam, and negative 1.4% renewables. I didn't understand how that one came out. But anyway, when we take a look at the rest of it, they're ready to burn crude oil. They're the world's largest crude to burn for electricity that's out there. And I started taking a look at it. Why would they do that, Michael? Well, their cost to get it out of the ground is between $3 and $9 a barrel. That's pretty cheap. Now it makes sense why they're doing that way. Even though it's not very, very good, oil is still 40% of their generation. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. I think the economics, when you look at what Saudi Aramco has to deal with, is pretty unbelievable. You're talking about, less than $5 per barrel operating cost. They widely claim it's somewhere in that 350 range, and their average break-even price being 40 to 45. That's a mix of onshore versus offshore, which offshore is going to obviously have a little bit of a higher break even, again, because you're dealing with a lot of extra costs that go to it. So it's pretty unbelievable. You've got the oil fields like this mentioned, the oil fields like their Guar field. You're talking oil. You basically dig a ditch and you find oil.
It's like in your coffee cup. Have it for coffee instead of, having that. And that's why when Ananias, I just want to give Ananias a shout out. He's a cool cat on X. And when you sit back and take a look at it, they look at energy in decades instead of the next election. So giving them a shout out. Let's go to the next one. QatarEnergy. You take a look at Qatar. This article was pretty interesting. Al Kabebi said on Tuesday during a session at the Qatar Economic Forum powered by Bloomberg that QatarEnergy started just trading a few years back, and we're going to expand. The ambition is by 2030 to reach somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 million tons of non-Qatari LNG traded by our trading group. Let me tell you how much they are looking to expand, Michael. They currently are at 77 million tons today, and they have 70 ships. They're adding 128 ships. They got expansion going on, baby.
Yep.
That's a big number of ships.
No, and I think what they're also seeing is they're seeing that in these turbulent times where oil prices are all over the place, seemingly because of things that they can't control. I think they look at the super majors, specifically they look at the Shells of the world, they look at the BPs of the world, who have these massive trading arms that are able to basically provide profits, abnormal profits in times of lower oil prices. I mean, we see this every time with Shell. Oil prices go down, their oil and gas business profits decrease, but their trading profits go through the roof because spreads go up. So I think what they're doing is also taking a look at what's going on macro and saying, okay, if we're going to own all this LNG, and it's the easiest to trade, why don't we just have our own trading arm and do this internally, capture those profits that are then leaving us and leaving it up to, the Vitals of the world or the BPs of the world. And so I think is definitely part of their analysis as they've come to this conclusion.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's great. And I think it's also interesting how much QatarEnergy is investing in the U.S. as well, too. So I think that was pretty good. Rolling to our buddies down there in Brazil. Let's go roll around with Petrobras. Petrobras, a Brazil oil and gas major, has signed an engineering, production, and installation, an EPCI contract with Subsea 7 for the Búzios 11 project worth $4 billion. It's $1.48 billion. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot of money. And it's going to cover 15 wells to the P8 platform with 8 producers and 7 alternating water and gas well injections. Now, I went ahead and added some of the domestic production and stuff for their 25 to 29 business plan, and strategic is a summary based on the available information. They're doing a heck of a lot of stuff here. Petrobras has allocated $111 billion with $77 billion for the earmark for 2025 CapEx. They're putting some money back out in that field, but go look at the bottom line. They're partnering with China.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they got to go with who's good at bringing them to the dance. And, that one ought to get flagged for old President Trump to get worked up on, just to get
it will be interesting. Up. I mean, that's and $111 billion for a company like Petrobras is a pretty insane number, considering the fact that over $77 billion of that is actually earmarked for exploration and production. Now they have dropped their CapEx plans. It does say they did throw out there that they were investing $21 billion originally. That's down to somewhere in the 17 to 18.5 billion range, which is mainly due to the fact that prices have dropped a little bit. Right. They claim their break-even price is $28 a barrel. Ooh, I'm going to say IR guy of the week maybe on that one. It's maybe there's one well in their portfolio that is a break-even of 28, but is it their entire portfolio? Ooh, I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. And I know I'm stretching really far. I doubt that.
No mas. No bueno. I don't think so. Anyway, I thought that was a lot of fun. I love Petrobras. We love all of our great listeners out there in Brazil. Brazil's one of our top countries reading in the Energy News Beat podcast. I'm looking at the map right now, and I think everybody in Brazil's on our site.
We love it.
We love Brazil. We got to do a podcast from there, dude. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's go to the last story.
We ever can get you out of Oklahoma, sure, we'll go down there.
Oh, I'm half the time in Texas. Let's go to Trump allows Equinor to resume work on offshore wind project. You'd be happy. The whales just absolutely committed Harry Carey. I heard one of them beach himself here just about 15 minutes ago. He'd rather beach himself than face a windmill. What does mean to you? That's a beached whale trying to avoid a wind turbine off the epic Empire Wind project. Okay, this is really sad, Michael. And this part of our story that I covered yesterday from Alex Epstein on the debacle we have as a government. Can't get rid of the IRA Porculus bill stuff. New York State power mix for 2023. I added this into the article because I want people to understand that New York power mix is the 8th most expensive in the United States right now. And when you sit back and take a look, they're 46% natural gas. They can't expand anymore on that because Governor Hochul has then turned around and said, we ain't doing any more natural gas. Hydropower's 22%, nuclear's 22%, renewables are 10%. Ooh, but they also import from Canada. Oops.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, as much as, I would have thought New York was going to be, New York to have a really odd mix of electricity. 46% natural gas, 22 hydro, 22 nuclear. That's not terrible. That's a really good diversified mix. I don't know how much New York does right, but they're at least doing this right.
They shut down their nuclear and then they just barely reopened it, Michael. Yeah. They were shutting down 22% of their power. Their path to stupidity is in that governor's office.
Yeah, I guess, as of, I guess we're looking at 2023 numbers, so we need to know 2025 is going to have. But you're telling me between natural gas, hydro, and nuclear, it's over 80% of the electrical mix. I'd have thought it was way worse than that. So they're doing better than California.
But yeah, they are. They're 8th in the country, so they're not as bad as California. Okay, not as bad as California is still 8th.
Yeah, I'm not defending them at all. I'm just saying that is a little bit shocked. Now, you do see that the average residential rates, in New York are high. You're talking about 27 cents per kilowatt hour, which is up about 3 cents from where they were in 2023. The average national is about 17 cents per kilowatt hour, which is obviously not terrible. And the average monthly bill, as you mentioned, ranks 43rd or 8th highest, with an average monthly bill of about $140. So not great.
Yep. But the fact that we're bringing the Empire project back on after it was laid to rest, and you made you made a great point, and even though I don't like listening to you, I did listen to you on that one, and it was a point that they had spent billions getting to that point. But at what point were they just rushing through the graft and greed and the approval process? The fact that offshore wind cannot sustain itself without the subsidies is a problem for me. And why are we going down this road? Look at other sources to get your energy mix other than offshore wind.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. Offshore wind is terrible. So, you're not going to get any complaints from me.
Offshore wind is just one step below burning oil.
Yeah, or just getting mice to lose their minds on treadmills. There's really not much worse. So it'll really be interesting. Equinor did say on Monday that the following dialogue with regulators, federal, state, and city officials, and that stop work order that they had talked about was lifted by the Bureau of Ocean Management, and that construction will resume. So regardless of what they think, they're moving forward.
I'm sorry, because watch what happens. Bookmark this podcast. In 2027, let's take a look again at the New York State power bills as all this comes due, and they have to start adding this in. They're going to get electrical rates added back in, and the consumer rates are going to go through the roof.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting. Well, all right, let's jump over and quickly cover oil and gas finances. Before we do that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. As always, thank you for checking us out here on the world's greatest website, w.energynewsbeat.com. Stu and the team do a tremendous job making sure that website stays up to speed. Everything we need to know to be the tip of the spear when it comes to the energy and the oil and gas business. Hit that description below. All links to the timestamps, links to the articles. Check us out on Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com, the best place for all your energy and oil and gas news. If you want to stay up to speed with everything about Energy Newsbeat, Substack's the place to go, guys. It's a great way to support the show, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. Also, shout out to a friend of the show, Reese Energy Consulting, for help making this possible. Guys, we love Reese Energy Consulting. If you are in the oil and gas business and you're in the upstream space, and you're not working with an oil marketing company, highly recommend giving Reese Energy Consulting a call. They're going to save you buco dollars on your first purchaser and midstream contracts. If you're in the midstream space and you have any problems, guys, they are the experts when it comes to all of that. They've done business and done projects for pretty much everybody from, the largest companies in the world to the smallest startups in the world and everything in between. They have a breadth of resources. Check them out. ReeseEnergyConsulting.com. Tell them Energy Newsbeat sent you, and they will cut you 1,000% discount. That's a joke, but they will enjoy to hear that you got sent from here. Let's also just remember, guys, if you are looking to add oil and gas to your portfolio in 2025, go to investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. We have a great ebook available that kind of breaks down all the which ways you can invest in the oil and gas business. We will get that to you so that you can, at parties coming up here, so that at your Memorial Day party this weekend, you can tell everybody you are Billy Bob Thornton from Landman. I think that's a critical piece to all of this. You can also tell people you get a sweet little monthly distribution, you're saving on taxes, and you are diversifying your portfolio. So, guys, that's investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. Stu, let's look at the indices though. We got S&P 500 up about down about a half a percentage point. Nasdaq down about 0.6 of a percentage point. 2 and 10-year yields. The 2-year yields will flat. 10-year yields up though, so not great from an inversion standpoint. Dollar index down about 0.3 of a percentage point. Bitcoin up over $106,000 a coin. Unbelievable. Crude oil up about 0.2 of a percentage point. 62.31. Brent was actually up a full percentage point. 65.57. Natural gas up 9 percentage points all the way. Started the trading day down at $3.11 all the way up to $3.39. So natural gas having itself a day. When we look at really what's going on in the world, I think a lot of what's happening right now is the Iran nuclear talks. Yes, they might have fallen. They may be falling off these negotiations. There's a lot of geopolitical stuff going on right now. Basically Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khomeini, came out to said that the U.S. demands that Tehran stop enriching uranium are excessive and outrageous, and voicing doubts on whether or not a new nuclear deal will succeed. Super interesting there. Remember, guys, Iran is the third biggest crude producer in OPEC, just behind Saudi Arabia and Iraq. And this potential deal theoretically would allow Iran and the U.S., or between Iran and the U.S., would allow the Iranians to raise oil exports by some 300,000 to 400,000 barrels per day if those sanctions were eased, which would definitely take a hit to oil and gas prices. The EU and Britain announced some new sanctions on Russia. I mean, it's just we're back in 2022 now. They did not wait for the U.S. to join them. That was a day after Donald Trump spoke to Vladimir Putin, and that ended with no ceasefire agreement. We did see some Chinese. We saw yesterday a bunch of traders responding to some Federal Reserve moves. They're expecting U.S. Central Bank to deliver somewhere in the cuts of about a half a percentage, 50 basis point interest through the end of 2025, which expected to start in September. Not sure if I necessarily agree with that. We also did see some data that showed decelerating industrial output and retail sales in China has just really put more pressures on oil prices. You guys listen to this, you will have seen the API crude oil guesstimate and the EIA crude oil inventory report. Somewhere in that forecast, about 1.4 million barrels have been pulled. That's just a guesstimate, though. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, though, Stu. That's really all I've got. We've got a great State of the Union coming up tomorrow. I'm very excited to get this done, Stu. And we've got a little segment that we'll do at the end, which is predictions. And I saw a little glance at our predictions today. They're a little spicy.
Oh yeah. Now, whether or not we have to go on record, because I always think I'm a legend in my own mind and right. So we might as well go on record.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, all right, guys. Well, with that, we're going to let you get out of here, get back to work, start your week. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. Thanks for checking us out. We will see you tomorrow.